All right, you're welcome. This is PR and Advertising, International PR and Advertising, and it's good to see you join this episode. Today, we're exploring a powerful idea: how countries influence the world without force. Okay, not through war, not through money, but through something more subtle, which is perception. Okay, so before we continue, let's do a quick recap of episode one. Now, in the last episode, we introduced international public relations and advertising, and we learned that communication is never random. Okay, we explored the difference between public relations and advertising, and PR focused on building trust and managing reputation. So, the difference between public relations and advertising is that advertising focuses on persuasion and promotion. We also discussed how messages change across cultures and how people respond differently based on emotions, beliefs, and experiences. Now, in episode two, we're taking that idea even further, okay? Because if communication can shape perception, then countries can also use communication to shape how the world sees them. And that brings us to today's topic: soft power and media influence in international public relations. If you missed episode one, I strongly encourage that you go back and watch it, because it lays the foundation for everything we'll be discussing in this episode. Before we move on, it will be good for you to subscribe, and also come back to the channel and hit the notification button. That would allow you to be able to see any, new videos that we post. So please like and subscribe to the channel so that we'll be able to have more and we'll share more with you and you do not miss any episode. So let's start very simply and let's move on. What is soft power? In today's episode, you'll be looking at soft power and we'll be talking about what it means, okay? What it basically means for you as a practitioner or as somebody who is going into public relations and advertising. So by the end of this episode, you should be able to understand what soft power means, explain how, the media shapes national image, analyze communication around global issues, and also compare how different countries are able to use soft power, okay? And compare how different countries are portrayed in the media. So let's go quickly. What is soft power? Okay, soft power is the ability to influence others through attraction, okay? Not force, not pressure, not coercion. It's simply attraction. It's when people admire your culture, trust your values, or want to even associate with you. Looking at it in the hard space, we're going to say that you can look at cultural diplomacy, media partnerships, thought leaderships, and even stakeholder engagements. This is very key when building relations and wanting to attract international partnerships. It will be also good to look at the soft power concepts and theoretical framework that is going to be underpinning the use of soft power. So, one of the key areas to look at is the Inye's soft power theory, and that is Joseph Inye's soft power theory that lets you know that soft power is currently is anchored on three key areas. The three key areas for that looks at the strong points for emotions, what drives soft power, what basically makes one different from the other, and what makes it an asset. Okay, so in terms of that, we are actually talking about soft power in terms of the applications. Okay, so in terms of that, we look at the application of soft power in the global space. So in the soft power says you want to listen to me. Okay, hard power says you must listen to me. So one forces action while the other inspires it. So in terms of the core soft power dimension, soft power operates through indirect influence mechanisms, where audiences voluntarily would adopt recommended positions, while hard power relies on coercion or financial incentives. So in PR practice, soft power strategies create sustainable preference, changes and brand loyalty, whereas hard power tactics generate short-term compliance with potentially, long-term resentment at the end of the day. So the most effective international PR integrates both dimensions of soft power, which establishes receptivity and trust, while strategic messaging, hard power elements converts receptivity into action. Organizations exclusively would rely on soft power, basically not just because of what it can give, but it's also very difficult if you do not maximize the two, because those using only hard power will face legitimacy challenges, audience resistance, but when complemented, these are very strong tools or strategy that can be used in PR. So taking it from this dimension, we also will be looking at the areas of cultural appeal, political values, educational excellence, economic model, digital innovation, and social responsibility. Think of it like this: if soft power is saying you want to listen to me, it's trying to inspire, right? And in today's world, soft power is often more powerful. So the idea is that you're trying to create an attractiveness, of your nation, attractiveness of your organization, but organizational values, attractiveness of your country, attractiveness of the space that you have, credibility in your governance. That is one key area in international public relations. Okay, the quality of knowledge, institutions, and innovations that you have. So you want the world to know about that. But where does soft power really come from? Looking at the cultural appeal, we're talking about music, film, fashion, etc. Also looking at the political values like human rights, innovations, good governance. These are areas or sources of soft power. Okay, then from communication, looking at the digital innovation or economic model, how is it communicated? Okay, how is the country telling their story? This is where the media becomes very, very important. And that takes us to media campaigns and strategic communication architecture. How is this very, very important in today's sphere? Media campaigns are how countries project themselves to the world. Okay, the way they promote their identity, as such, they would have to use multiple channels of communication. This is what shapes perception, okay, because they influence how others will think and feel. And in simple terms, what we're saying is that the media becomes the voice of the country. So effective soft power campaigns operate across, integrated channels, not just one. And this is an example. This is how you would see it being integrated. Traditional media, digital media, social platforms, even influencer partnerships that are currently being used, and also direct channels. These integration is very, very key because, like we've said, audiences differ. We talked about culture and perception and how messages change across, different spaces in our first episode. So this goes a long way to show you that you need to be able to integrate and use this when designing your strategy. A multi-channel media integration strategy is more effective than a single pathway strategy when it comes to PR. And then we're looking at other areas that, PR, like we said, PR is not just sensitization, right? PR is also, there are different types when it comes to crisis communication, especially in the soft power context. So what we're looking at will be crisis types such as governance failure, if there's something that comes up there with that and you want to, repair that reputation or change that perception, right? Environmental violations, we have cultural insensitivity, human rights concern, etc. So in all of this, the what you would have noticed is that the gap would be that maybe political values, credibility, all of that is being eroded in that country. So it will be good for you to make sure that your response, your PR response strategy, is actually tied to remedying that perception. Okay, so when it comes to responsibility, when you see that something has failed environmentally in your country, your responsibility as a PR practitioner or a PR professional or PR agent that is supposed to work on that is to ensure that you are bringing out activities, projects, and all of the kind of news that would talk about environmental commitment that the government is making, stakeholders are making, etc. Affirmations, remediation plans, these are very, very important because the message priority at that time is to let them know that we are standing, we are for this, we're working towards this, and you're giving the people that assurance, you're giving the international space that assurance. Also, looking at cultural insensitivity, some morally decaying, will I say, attitudes or activities that would happen does not make the culture appealing to anyone who wants to, either pay attention or invest in your country. As such, this could be maybe a cultural appeal that undermines even the framework or the fabric of your own nation. As such, the PR strategy at that point will be cultural acknowledgement. It would also require education, information, sensitizing people, inclusive actions that will make the international community know that you are culturally sensitive in terms of participation, integration, and even human rights concerns, right? And also in terms of human rights concern, what you say versus what you do have to align. Because, for example, if there are human rights concerns that show that democratic values are contradicted, this is not a win for any nation. Okay, as such, as a PR practitioner or as a PR professional, what you should be thinking about is, how to bring in activities, projects, campaigns that would show right affirmations, investigations. You commit to investigating that human rights concern, and then make sure that everyone who is a culprit or who has participated in such devious or hideous act is actually brought to book. This would actually bring about that universal value for life, to let people know that they are valued even in their country, and even for those who are thinking about visiting that country. Because a country is not judged only by what it is, but how it is presented. As such, if your country is always presented in the wrong light, negative coverage can create fear and even stereotypes. So this is the kind of communication we see happening in global issues. So how do we turn that to build image for the nation, or national image branding and global brand positioning? If the media doesn't just reflect the reality, we know that it shapes it, right? So in today's communication, because it moves very, very fast across borders, once a message is out there, soft power becomes particularly important when countries can communicate about global concerns such as trade, human rights, terrorism, and security, environment, etc. So if these are not controlled, if you cannot control the message out there, it means that you need to spread a message that will change and influence your audience, your international space, and your potential investors. Okay, countries also use communication to position themselves in these areas because these are global issues. Okay, human rights is a global issue. Why? Because these are areas that affect how other countries would trust them, how other countries will come to partner with them or invest in them. So this is very, very critical, and it's not something that you should play with. So your soft power comes into play in this area. So this also shows that if this is not attention is not paid to these areas, it could actually break down, international partnerships, diplomatic relations, and even foreign investments. Okay, nobody wants to come into a place where they don't believe that that they trust you. Nobody will want to do that. So let's take this home and bring it down to Nigeria. It's always good to bring a case study from this particular area. It would interest you to know that while we are looking at the image building of different nations and how they are boosting their reputation, trust is visibility. It's like we are visible everywhere, right? But we are not trusted enough. So a detailed national reputation report was released in 2025, and it revealed something deeply important about Nigeria's global image. Now, according to Nigeria's Reputation Perception Index 2025, Nigeria scored just about 35.2% thereabouts, placing the country in what researchers are describing as a low trust reputation category. And this exposes a major paradox. Nigeria is globally visible, but we are not globally trusted. So, what has the government all been trying to do, or what has been happening? Let's bring it home, okay? The Proudly Naija initiative by the federal government of Nigeria is one good example of a PR campaign that has tried to go beyond what it is that the world is thinking. The federal government of Nigeria focused on promoting Nigeria's strength through culture, creativity, innovation. And the goal was simple: to change the narrative, right? But this years have gone over the past decade. We see that these challenges still are still there. Okay, while the goal is just to ensure that we are promoting a positive image of Nigeria, Nigeria's global image is also shaped by international media, and that happens for any other country, either negative or positive. So stories about insecurity or governance issues is what is dominating the scene. So even when positive campaigns are existing within the country, they compete with the powerful negative narratives. As such, PR becomes very, very key and important. But what happens? Authenticity is very key, because across Africa, there is a growing effort to even reshape the continent's image, right? But to show Africa as innovative, youthful, or full of opportunity, there would have to be a lot much more that will be done. So these are the gaps that is happening currently, because the challenges we see are not just constructed by the media. It's the perception of people, the experiences that people are currently having in terms of governance perception gaps, infrastructure narratives. When we talk about our transportation network, we're talking about urban development. The media, even if we have one or two good, the truth is the other bads kind of like overcome it, because the news would always recognize the deficits more than any other progress that is being made. Most people form opinions about countries they've never even visited. Why? Because of the media. So what you see actually shapes your beliefs. Okay, so the media constructs reality, and that is what we can see. So on this note, we would want you to turn, what you have learned into something very reflective. Okay, it's time for you to reflect on, what you think has been happening in terms of another country, okay, and your country. So you can choose two countries, one from Africa, one from outside Africa, one from your country, one from outside of your country, and analyze how they are portrayed in the media. Okay, are the stories you hear about these countries, what image comes to your mind when this country comes, when this country is mentioned? How do you decode, the message? Are the messages mostly positive or negative? If the themes that often appear, corruption, insecurity, bad governance, etc., Will that make you want to, be an ally of that country? Or would that want you to, move away? Would you want to invest in such a place? So these are questions that are very critical for governments across, around the world to take note of, because your job is to ensure that the image of the nation that you're managing is very, very, is realistic with what is happening on ground. So before you go think about this, which country do you admire most? What country? And what shaped that perception? The chances would be that it was the media. So remember to drop your answers in the comments, and we'll see you on the next episode. But before we go, key lessons to pick out today would be that communication alone is not enough. It's never, never enough. Okay? Because perception must be supported by reality. Okay? If we take a look at the things that we already have, then we'll be able to know what it is that we can fit in. Also remember, the soft power is influenced through attraction, okay, not by force. You cannot force it. You can't force people to like your country. You can't force people to, adopt your policies if, you're not taking the first step. Media would shape the national image. As such, countries should begin to invest in their media, okay? Invest in the media that you have. Communication is strategic, it is not random. Okay, so as such, we have to remember that from today, don't just consume the media, learn to analyze the kind of information that you see. And that is what's going to help you even as you move on as a professional. Thank you for watching. Please remember that you can also be part of everything that we have done by liking and subscribing to the channel. Also note that because perception is shaped by what you see or what you hear, you have to start seeing the world differently. I'm Dr. Roxie Ola-Akuma. Join us in the next episode as we analyze how communication influences global issues. And don't forget to subscribe to Roxie's Media World and also turn on the notification bell. At this juncture, I want to say thank you for watching. Bye.